in this computer. Okay, so I am recording. So I first wanted to say hello, welcome everyone to Palo Alto's first open house. And this session will be for the MS and PhD program. And we will also have 3 other sessions in the next coming months. So if for some reason you needed to step out today, or if you just want to come back for another session to learn more or ask any of your other questions, you could always sign up for these 3 other open houses that we'll be having. And first, to start off with some introductions, my name is Robin. I'm a senior admissions counselor here at PAU, and I primarily work with our master's in psychology students, as well as our doctoral program students. And I'm also joined here today with Dr. Arnaud, and Dr. Arnaud will make her introductions in a few minutes. And then we're also joined by 2 current students in the program, Yelena, and then also Maya. She's in the room. And Yelena, what year are you in the program? And are you also doing a concentration?
Yes, I'm a second year now, MS psychology student, and I'm just the PhD track. So I've been admitted into the PhD and look forward to that junction.
All right, awesome. Thank you. All right. And then I believe Maya is a PhD student. And so maybe she'll make her introductions later. But so I kind of want to go over the agenda today. So today we're going to be going over some slides about the program, sort of more in detail, also some of the admissions requirements, the concentrations, and then shortly after we will have time for questions. And I see that Maya actually joined us. And Maya, if you wanted to take a second to say what year program you're in, and also if you have an emphasis in the program.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya. I am going to my 4th year of the PhD program, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. But I'm really kind of nearing my end of my journey here. It's been really wonderful. I am in the DCMH and LGBTQ plus emphases. I also have taken coursework in the trauma emphasis. So if anyone wants to talk about any of those, I'm happy to chat.
Right. Thank you for introducing yourself, Maya. And yeah, the journey does go by very quickly from what I hear from the students. Even though it's a 5-year program, it goes by really fast. And so also during the presentation that we're going to start right now, if you do have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. Some of our current students also, I'll be looking at the chat as well to answer any of your questions. And anything that doesn't get answered, we will answer them at the end. Or also I'll have my email at the end of the slides, so you can reach out to me so we could have a counseling session as well if we don't get to anything today of your questions. So I'm just going to be sharing my screen. And then anyone that just joined us, this session is being recorded. All right. All right. Oops. All right. So I will let Dr. Arnaud take it away and introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Genevieve Arnaud, and I'm the Director of Clinical Training, which is essentially Director of the PhD program. And Robin, are you going to be changing the slides for me? Is that how this will be working?
Yes, I can change the slides for you.
Okay, great. And who's presenting about the MA program? Are you doing that? I mean the MS program.
Yeah, yes, that'll be me.
Okay, great. Okay, so go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay. All right. So this is just to let you know a little bit about the leadership team for the PhD program. We have 4 faculty members who kind of head up different areas of the program. You see me second from the left there. And although it says Director of Clinical Training, that's a typical term in the PhD world for essentially a program director. So I oversee the whole program, and then also specifically internship training. Internship is the last year that anybody who wants to get a PhD or PsyD in either the United States or Canada has to do. It's a year-long experience after all classes and practicum training is completed. And you can see there I have both a PsyD and a PhD. And so I'm pretty used to both models of training, and that's given me a lot of insight into what the students go through, as well as how the program is and might be structured. If you're looking to the left of my photograph there, that's Dr. Sita Patel, who is in combination with Dr. Haybarth to my right, the Associate Director of Academic and Research Training. And they're both tenured faculty members, and Dr. Patel oversees the research lab match, and Dr. Haybarth oversees the clinical oral competency exam. Dr. Lidek on the far right is our Assistant Director of Clinical Training. He oversees the practicum training. And then we have lots of other faculty and staff who work with us, but these are just the people who are responsible for running the program. Go ahead and shift to the next slide. Thanks. So just a little bit about PAU. Some of you may know a lot of this. It was founded in 1975. And we generally have about 1,200 students across 6 programs. Now, we do have some new programs coming on board. We have a PhD in counselor education and supervision, I think it's called, and there'll be a social work program, but those are not operational as yet. We have 2 bachelor's completion programs, 2 master's programs. Yelena is in one of them, the MS in psychology program, and then we have the MA in counseling program, and we have the PhD and PsyD program. So those are both psychology. We are a not-for-profit school accredited by WASC. We are accredited in terms of psychology by the American Psychological Association, and the PsyD program and the PhD program are each individually accredited. Each program has to be accredited uniquely. The master's program in psychology is not an accredited program. At this point, the American Psychological Association does not accredit master's level programs. The MA program is accredited by KCREP. And I'm sure if you're interested in that program, you'll be going to some open houses on those. PAU offers residential and distance learning programs. I'm going to stick primarily to the PhD program. We are a residential program. That doesn't mean that you come here and live in a dorm, but it does mean that you would come here and you would be on campus. We have in-person instruction. That got disrupted somewhat during the pandemic, as I'm sure it did for many of you who were in school during the pandemic. You were probably doing a combination of fully remote and hybrid classes. We are mostly back to fully residential program. The only reason that we're not is, unfortunately, some of the faculty, the adjunct faculty moved out of the area. So some of our electives are still online, but we're hoping to be fully back in person within the next year. We have pretty sizable international student population, as well as a domestic student population across all the programs. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to let you take this, Robin, because this is starting to get into things that go across programs and then the counseling program.
Yes. So I sort of wanted to take a minute to talk about sort of what we do really well at PAU and sort of the intersections of technology and mental health. So we have some faculty members here, as well as our provost, Dr. Erica Cameron, and they have research interests in sort of that technology space. As well as here on the bottom, you can see sort of the things that we are doing in that space, which we have our e-clinic, which it's online. It's our clinical mental health, and it's hosted by our MA program. And then we also have our Foundations of Digital Mental Health certificate, which is through Concept, which is our continuing education branch within the university, and it is free to students. And then we also are located, excuse me, at the heart of Silicon Valley. So here we have a lot of opportunities, in the tech space, as well as we have a lot of relationships and such like that in that sort of space. And so making those advancements, as well as having one of our recordings of the superstar psychologists. And we also have that recording available. Oh, that went past that. We have that recording available on YouTube. And then we also have our tech and mental health concentration, which I'll go into more detail within these slides. So that's sort of the things that we do in this space. And this is just something we like to promote because this is something that we do really well here at PAU. All right, Dr. Arnaud, you could continue.
Yeah, just to let you know, we have 2 campuses. We have a clinic that is actually called the Gronowski Center. It's in Mountain View. And at that campus, we have both our community-based mental health clinic, where all students train for their first clinical training placement in the second year of the program, and also a number of faculty offices and classrooms there. And then we also have the main campus, which is referred to as the Alan Calvin campus. Alan Calvin was the president of PAU for more than 30 years. And that's in Palo Alto. And that's a beautiful campus, a small one, but it's right at the edge of the Arastradero Preserve. So it's in a really beautiful location. Let's see. I think it's really important as you're deciding what to do at this point. You're all in decision-making phase. And it's important to be thinking about which specific programs you're interested in attending, because they do differ. And Robin can probably direct you, if you haven't found it already, to a video that we made, Dr. Coker from the counseling program and I made, to discuss the difference between counseling and psychology. And in that, we also talk a little bit about the difference between master's programs and doctoral programs and PsyD and PhD. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of that here. It's important to be thinking about what your goals are. So for psychologists, some of the things that they may do, and same thing for counselors, is both of them may do therapy. It's more likely for psychologists to be doing research, and also to some extent more likely for somebody with a doctorate to be doing teaching rather than someone with a master's. Also more likely for a psychologist to be carrying out assessment, psychological assessment or testing. Case management tends to be something that's done more in social work or at a master's level. So if you're interested in doing only therapy, there are some students who come in who just really love doing therapy, or that's what they want to do for their career. Then it's important to be thinking, do I really need a doctorate? Because if I'm going to be working with clients, in fact, many of the clinicians who work in agencies or in private practices are master's level clinicians. And you may not need the extra 3 or 4 years that it takes to get the doctorate if you're not going to be doing research or testing. If you are somebody who is really interested in having a research or academic career, or you absolutely know that you definitely want to do psychological testing, maybe you're really excited about forensics, that's my area of expertise, or neuropsychology, then you really do want to be thinking about a doctorate. Regardless of what you do, if you are going to be going into a doctoral program, you want to make sure that you go to an APA accredited doctoral program, because that will help you with licensure down the road, with getting diplomate status and so forth, getting jobs, getting postdoctoral placements, etc. PsyD or PhD. Some of you may be applying to both the PsyD and the PhD programs. And as I said, I have both. And so I have a sense of the training in each one. A PhD is typically more research focused, and a PsyD is typically more clinically focused. As you'll see later on, however, our PhD program actually does a balance between these two, which I think is really excellent training. Our students come out extremely well trained. And as I'm guessing Maya is going to nod when I say this, our students are really busy. They're spending a lot of time doing both research and clinical work, and it is a fair amount of work. Maya, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's true. We are quite busy. I would say that things really shift throughout every year, right? So kind of that first year, you're really focusing on classes. And then every year you're taking on kind of new things, like you're doing clinical work in your second year, as maybe Elena has experienced, and then you're starting to get into research and dissertation work as you go further on. But it's such a kind of diverse set of experiences and ways to learn and grow, right? From classes to practicum to research. I mean, that's kind of like the crux of what, getting this kind of education is that you're given so many different ways to grow and to learn. And so it is quite rewarding if you enjoy learning. And yeah, so definitely busy, but it feels worthwhile most of the time. But yeah.
Thanks, Maya. Okay, go ahead, Robin, and let's see what the next one is. Okay, I'm gonna quiet down while you talk.
All right, so I'm gonna be going over our MS overview of the program, which is our master's in psychology degree. And so first, I want to say that this is not a licensed degree. So if you want to see any clients in any licensed capacity, this would not be the degree, and potentially would be a better fit with our master's in clinical mental health program as well. And we also will have open house sessions for that if you want to learn about that as well. And so, as you can see on this overview, students who want a terminal degree with the forensic psychology and the tech and mental health, or just the MS in psychology, there are a lot of career opportunities that you could pursue, which is within research, teaching, media education, and healthcare and forensics. And then here, our other degree, which is sort of a prep track, is our PhD prep. And so this is ideal for students that want to pursue a PhD, potentially here at PAU or in other institutions. And the idea is that it is the curriculum of the first year of our PhD program, and it's split into sort of 2 years. And so this is ideal for students that maybe need some time to prepare for a PhD program. Possibly they haven't been in school for a while, or maybe just want to ramp up their education and then in a degree and in pursuing education. And so this might be ideal for a student that, just wants to slowly get into a PhD program. And so here it's about 7 quarters plus a summer, and it is 47 units. And then we also have on the forensic psychology, and then we have our tech and mental health concentrations, and those are a little bit less. It's about 6 quarters and then a little bit less units. And also to mention, the PhD prep track is not a guarantee. So it's not a guarantee that you'll transition into our PhD program. You would still have to take a comp exam, and then you'd still have to apply, interview for the program, and then also do really well academically within the program to be able to transition. And so that's a little bit about our programs in the MS. Right. And then here, I'm going to talk about the format of the MS program. So the terminal degrees, as well as the PhD prep track, it's entirely online. The only exclusion is if you are in the PhD prep track, there is a week that you have to come on campus during the second year. And so that would be the only time. But besides that, it's completely online. And the courses are synchronous. So like we are here today, you would join on a Zoom room, and then you would be interacting with the faculty, your cohort, everyone. So it sort of helps to keep you engaged. And the classes are 90 minutes long or more, and they are typically held between 5 and 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time during the week. So that is a really good thing to sort of think about if you are possibly an international student, or if you're in another state where it possibly might be later for you to log into those courses. So that is something to think about. And typically students take about 2 to 3 classes per quarter. And pretty much the rule of thumb is if you're taking a 3-unit course for each of those units is equal to about 3 hours of time commitment that you would need to be studying, as well as the time that you're also taking the courses. So it's a really good thing to process before committing to this program, to know that on top of the courses, you do also have to take time to finish homework, do studying, and all those things. And we're set up for it to be a cohort model. So the students that you do enter the program with, you're sort of matriculating through the program with until you sort of break off when you start choosing your concentrations. And I sort of wanted to ask Yelena, sort of your experience being in the MS program, and how it is being online, and what you think about it.
I personally think that PAU has done a phenomenal job of their presentation of online classes. Some of the instructors are very creative with how they present it. Even though we're remote, they give us a lot of opportunity to interact with one another. There are breakout rooms, discussion groups. We watch videos together and then do prompts from there. I also like the fact that they're oftentimes, most of the time, recorded so that we can come back to it and rewatch it and access the materials. A lot of the instructors also do a great job of, I'm a visual learner, so it helps me when the slides are creative. There's subtitles, going on during everything. So I really appreciate the efforts that PAU has made, and the instructors.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so that's a little bit about Yelena's experience. And so we'll move on. And then here is sort of a map of the MS program. And so here you can see during the first year, no matter what terminal degree or concentration you're pursuing, students will be taking the same courses during the first year. And typically you have the first year to sort of decide if you want to pursue a concentration, or if you want to pursue our PhD prep track, or the other 2 options. And if you are thinking about doing the PhD prep track during that end of that first year in the summer, you would have to take your comp exam, and then you would need to pass that in order to continue to interview, and then also apply to the program as well. And then during the PhD prep track, then the second year, you would be doing that 1-week intensive in person. And then you would also be taking summer transition courses towards the end of the second year. And then during the second year in the tech and mental health, that's when you would be taking your 4 electives. However, it is recommended that you start your electives during the spring of the first year. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you are considering that concentration. And then also the forensic psychology, you would be taking your 2 forensics electives during that second year. So that's sort of the map of how your journey would be if you did decide to pursue the MS program. And then here, I just wanted to talk about our tech and mental health concentration. And so here are all the courses that you would be taking. And so in this concentration, you're going to be learning about which digital tools are effective, and that is based on data and research. And you'll be learning about what tools are effective in mental health interventions online. And then the second half of the courses are about creating digital tools. Specifically, how do you build tools that are effective from a psychological sciences perspective, the learning, science, and designer user experience, as well as this track can also be helpful in the mental health space or the tech space. For example, in Google, or even the user experience. And here on the bottom, you can see our internships that we offer in this concentration, which would be the VA mobile app or the eClinic or our tech and research labs. So if you were in this concentration, these would be the courses, and then these are some of the opportunities and learning that you would be doing within that. And then here is our concept courses, and it's our continuing and professional studies. And this is free to all PAU students. And usually we recommend students to sort of supplement with taking concept courses on top of their earning their degree. And here you could earn a lot of certificates. There are a lot of courses and they can be really helpful for students. So it is free to all students. And then here we have our forensic psychology, and here these are the two courses students would be taking. And this is ideal for students that maybe want to be a parole officer or maybe want to do some type of non-licensing role in the social justice system and such. And then you could also supplement with concept courses as well. And then these are some of the courses you could be taking. So there's just so many. And so we really do recommend our students to go and sort of see for themselves what other things they can learn while the degree, which could be really helpful, you know, if you are really pursuing something after you graduate. All right, and then Dr. Arnaud, you can take it away.
Thanks, Robin. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the way the PhD program is structured. And you see the first line there, it says a 5 to 6 year program, where it's actually designed as a 5-year program where you come in and do 4 years of residential here at PAU, and then the 5th year is an internship. However, I would say maybe a little bit less than half of our students choose to stay for a 6th year. And I'll talk about why that's the case when we go over the way the curriculum is structured. As I mentioned before, we really try to balance clinical research, clinical practice and research. And so instead of having what many schools call a scientist practitioner model or a scholar practitioner model, we have what we call a practitioner scientist model, which we have in order to indicate that we try to balance both of those. So let's go to the next slide, which I believe might, no, it doesn't. Okay, so as you're applying, I know, as I said, some of you are applying to both the PsyD and the PhD, and also maybe to the PhD and the MS program. One of the things we'll be looking at as we are reviewing applications is what your experience to date is. We like to look for some experience with clinical work, some experience with research methods and statistics, and also the different types of populations that you'd like to work with. So let me talk briefly about each of these. We don't expect that you've been a master's level clinician, although we do have some students who come in who already have a master's degree and sometimes are even licensed at a master's level, but we don't expect that. However, we do think it's easier in the program if you have had some experience. It might have been volunteer experience. Some of our students have been on crisis text lines, or they've worked in a residential treatment center, or they've volunteered for a class or something like that, so that it is clear that you have tried it and you do think it's something that might be a good fit for you. We also find that some of the most challenging classes that we have are our research methods and statistics classes. So for people who have not had any prior exposure to research methods or statistics, those can be pretty intensive classes and they can be pretty challenging. And that is all a setup for taking things like your research coursework and or courses to complete your dissertation. So those two things, in terms of balancing them in the program, we try to keep them equal. And we also do the same thing when we are selecting students through admissions. In terms of populations, we're not looking necessarily for people who are dying to work with a particular population. The main question is, would we be able to assist you in terms of getting experience with the population you may want to work with? So a good example of this might be if you're somebody who has worked with or would really like to work with individuals who are diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. We don't have a faculty member who specializes in autism spectrum disorder. We don't have a ton, although we do have some practicum sites in which students can work with that population. So we may not be a good program for you if that's really what you very, very much want to do. On the other hand, we're a really good program for students who are interested in working with veterans, for example, or working with traumatized populations, or working with the community mental health population. So those are the kinds of things we'll be looking for, and those are the kinds of things for you to be thinking about as you're making a decision about whether to apply for the PhD program. We very much value applicants who are very clearly committed to working with minoritized populations, who value diversity, equity, and inclusion, who are willing to do their own work about understanding their own biases, etc. And students with a wide variety of clinical interests and to some extent research interests are a good match, because we can't promise you that you would be matched with any particular practicum site or a particular research mentor, because we have enough students coming in that we actually have a match that students go through during their first year. We don't have students matched up with an advisor prior to coming into the program, in terms of somebody who's going to work with them on their dissertation. You do get an advisor your first year, but it's not for research, it's just for general making progress through the program. Okay, go ahead and switch to the next slide. We in terms of research training, our faculty are very productive. We have research and scholarship across multiple areas of psychology, and I believe we have a slide that shows you some of the specific labs that students can work in. You also can get online and take a look at our research faculty to see if there's anything that matches your area of interest. The students get mentorship in the lab, and they learn how to not only conduct research, but also how to present and publish research. It is a requirement before students graduate that they have disseminated research in some format. For example, presenting at a regional or national or international conference, or writing a book chapter, or writing a journal article. With respect to clinical training, there is didactic coursework as there is for research. As I mentioned, there is clinical work and supervision at the Gronowski Center for the first practicum. That's a community-based mental health service center. You get professional advising. For example, students who are going through internship applications right now, like Maya, are assigned to their own individual internship mentor who assists them through the internship application process. Also, we have, besides Dr. Lidek, whom you saw a picture of before, we have Dr. Angel Evans, who assists with practicum site coordination. So there's a lot of folks to support you in your clinical training. We also have, besides our internal training clinic, we have a system called BAPIC in the Bay Area, the Bay Area Practicum Information Collaborative, I think, where students from 9 or 10 different programs apply to sites that are in BAPIC. And there's an application process and then a computer match process like there is for internship. So we have probably between 70 and 80 different practicum sites that students can train in the community. We have many Veterans Affairs centers. We have some student counseling centers, community mental health centers, some correctional settings, and a whole lot more that you can see on the website. Our students are very competitive for practicum internships and postdoc. It's very important as you're making a decision about what school to apply to. Look at the stats. They have to be on all APA accredited schools to see how well students do in the internship match. And we have been extremely lucky with our students. Since I've been here, this is the start of my 5th year here. Since I've been here, our students have matched somewhere between 95 to 99% at APA accredited internship sites. So that's something you want to look at when you're applying to schools. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is how the 5-year curriculum is set up. I know you'll see 6 boxes here, but the last box is postdoctoral. It's the 6th year, which is after you get the doctorate. So in year 1, there is didactic coursework primarily. Toward the end of the year, you apply for research labs. And then in the summer, you begin training at, as I said, the Gronowski Center. And that's about 10 to 12 hours a week over the course of the first year with, it says 2 to 3 clients there, but I really would recommend 4 to 5 clients in order to keep your hours up. Hours are important because that's one of the markers to say that you're ready for internship. In the second year, The students continue with didactic coursework, and after matching at a research lab in the first year, they begin their research lab training. They start their assessment and therapy-focused courses at this point. And as I said, they continue the clinical training at the Gronowski Center. During the course of the second year, they apply through BAPIC for an external site that they'll complete in their third year. That's a full-time placement. And now, instead of it being 10 to 12 hours a week, it's 20 to 24 hours a week with far more clients. They finish up their didactic courses. They tend to be elective courses at that period. And they are continuing their research lab training and then beginning to develop their dissertation. When they've completed all of that, as well as a clinical oral competency exam, they earn an MS in clinical psychology, and then they can propose their dissertation, apply to internship, and work on their dissertation in year 4, completing another external practicum experience typically. And finally, on year 5, go on the internship, which is a 2,000-hour, 12-month experience. There is the possibility of having a 2-year internship where you complete half-time for 2 years. That was designed in part because there used to be an internship imbalance, and also in part because many students have very busy lives. They may also have kids, they may have parents that they're caring for. There might be a variety of reasons that it's difficult for them to go someplace and complete a full-time job, essentially, which is what an internship becomes for a full year. But since I've been here, nobody has done that. I don't recommend it if you can go through to a regular 1-year internship, and I'll be happy to talk about that with any of you when we get to the time of the internship class, which happens in 3rd year. Once a dissertation has been defended and the internship is done and all coursework is done, you graduate. And then in most states, not all states, but California is a good example of this, you also need an additional number of hours in order to be eligible to sit for the licensing exam. There's a national EPPP, it's called, licensing exam, the examination for the professional practice of psychology. And also in order to take the in-state licensing exam to get licensed within a specific state. So you can see that this is designed to be done in about 6 years. But as I said, probably slightly fewer than half of the students take an extra year. And that's typically because they're doing something like a very specified area, specialized area of training, like neuropsychology, and they'd like to have another year doing that, or they feel that they need more assessment experience because they weren't able to get assessment experience in their first practica. So they end up taking an extra year for that, or they get really excited about their research and want to see a particular research through to its fruition and get a publication and so forth. Or it could just also be that they've decided to have a family, and so they want to slow down a little bit so they can take care of their kids. So there's as many reasons to take a 6th year as there are students in the program who take a 6th year. But as you can see, it's not designed that way. The program is designed for you to continue straight through. All right, let's go to the next one. Here are the research labs, and that this was just a formatting issue. Dr. Hurst, the second line there, actually does have a research lab, and it doesn't mean that because there's a line through it that she doesn't have that. But as you can see, we have everything here from aging and neuropsychology to working with anxious youths to college student substance use, forensic kinds of topics, work on individuals who are identified as sexual minorities or gender minorities. We have personality studies, pretty much from my perspective, anything you want to work on, except for some specific populations you can do here. Let's go to the next slide. The PhD program, not the PsyD program, but the PhD program has 7 specific areas of emphasis. You'll see them listed here: pediatric behavioral health care, diversity and community mental health, forensic, LGBTQ+, neuropsychology, psychology of trauma, and health psychology. We did previously have a mindfulness-based area of emphasis. The faculty member who directed it retired, and so at the moment we don't have a faculty director to continue it, but we are finishing out the students who were in that area. If we do hire another person who does have expertise, we may bring it back, but at this point it's not an area that you can get an emphasis in. An emphasis is not required. Typically, the areas of emphasis have a set of electives that you have to take if you want to complete the area of emphasis. And all students, whether they're in an area of emphasis or not, have 18 elective units, which is the equivalent of 6 courses to complete. And those can be in an area of emphasis. Now, we had one question from Sandra about whether or not you can take classes from different areas of emphasis. Let me back up that question a little bit and say that some of these areas of emphasis, you simply complete the classes and you have completed the area of emphasis. And you don't have to apply to be in that area of emphasis or anything. You just have to complete the classes. There are others like forensic and neuropsych where you must apply, and they look at your transcript, your grades, how you've done that year, in order to determine whether they'll accept you into the area of emphasis. So if you are interested in those, you would want to begin by looking at the website to see whether or not, to see how you would apply and when you would apply. It's typically at the beginning of your second year. It probably is possible to complete 2 areas of emphasis, because if there are 2 areas of emphasis that you don't have to be admitted to formally, or if you've been admitted to one formally, you can still take typically electives in another area of emphasis. The ones where that's not the case would be neuropsychology. Only students in the neuropsychology area of emphasis are able to take the neuropsych classes. And I'm not sure about forensics, whether or not that's the case, whether you're allowed to take those. But the DCMH and LGBTQ and psychology of trauma, all of those anybody can take. So you could take those, possibly qualify for being in 2 areas of emphasis, but the most important thing there is to work with both directors of both areas of emphasis so you can make sure that it is really viable. You don't want to end up not graduating from either one of them because you are overloading yourself. It might be that you want to prioritize one over the other. For example, as I said, I'm in forensics, and I have students who say, I want to do forensics and I want to do neuropsych because I want to do evaluations for people who are maybe bringing civil suits to the court. And I will always say it is far more important to get your neuropsych experience first. It's much harder to get neuropsych experience once you get out of a doctoral program than it is to get experience with forensic populations, because unfortunately the forensic and correctional system right now is the largest provider of mental health services in the country. So that's another thing you would want to talk to the directors about. How should I prioritize this? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling here. I mentioned the Gronowski Center. There's only one more thing I'd like to tell you about that. We have 2 specialty clinics and 1 research clinic. These are fabulous clinics. One is La Clínica Latina, and that is for students who are Spanish speaking and want to provide services to individuals who are Spanish speaking and either mono or bicultural. We also have a sexual and gender identities clinic that's extremely popular. It typically has a waiting list, and students get excellent training there working with individuals who identify as sexual or gender minorities. The Early Intervention Clinic is a research-based clinic under Dr. Cordova, and his students provide clinical services, but it is for research purposes. It is not done specifically for therapeutic purposes. They actually collect data from the work that they do. And the people still get therapy, but it's it's much more structured because it's for a research protocol. All right, let's continue. I mentioned the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in fact, our faculty refer also to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The idea is that we really do want individuals to feel like they belong. There are a very large number of student groups dedicated to diverse identities. This is just a very short list of them. So that's one way to get involved with other students, is through these student organizations. There has been a Center for Excellence in Diversity that right now actually is not nearly as active as it was, not because we don't believe in it, but because in fact, it's not as necessary, because the researchers have really stepped up their game and they are doing a lot of research involving individuals from diverse populations. So it's very, very integrated into most, if not all, of the research that faculty are doing. And as you can see, a number of publications are focused in this area. Excuse me, let's go to the next one. We have really, really strong faculty. This is just some examples. Yelena would recognize Dr. Bunge in the top middle there. He does a lot of work with children and adolescents in developing apps for mental health treatment. Next to him to the right is Dr. Lisa Brown, who works with geropsych and trauma populations. And then to her right is Dr. Tasita Tormala, who is one of our social psychologist who teaches social psychology and cultural differences. Below them is Dr. Alin Barrera, who works with Spanish-speaking families and children. And then to her left is Dr. Robert Friedberg, who is the director of the pediatric behavioral health emphasis. And then we have a variety of other researchers. Dr. Kimberly Balsam does a huge amount of research and publication with LGBTQ plus individuals and just a whole lot of other things. So let's move on because I'm getting really aware of time. Excuse me. Our students are great. As I said, they're required to publish and present, and several of them have gotten really great awards. We have a number of students who have, over the past years, who've gotten minority fellowships from APA. So our students are very active. And next slide. And what do our graduates do? Essentially anything that they want to do. They work in medical settings, VAs, state hospitals, community mental health agencies, corrections, private practice, military, integrative healthcare. We have some who've gone on to research and academics. Honestly, I've not seen anything they can't do. We have a very small subset of individuals who end up doing user interface kinds of work. If that's something you're interested, I frankly don't know that I would actually get the PhD. I don't know that you need all the clinical training for that. You might want to go through the master's program if UIX is what you're really interested in. Okay, let's see what's on the, oh, I'm going to let you take it from here, Robin.
All right, just to quickly go over the admissions requirements. However, it is a lot more in detail on our website. And so here for the PhD and the MS program, they are very similar in terms of what you need to submit, and everything will need to be submitted on the SciCast portal. Nothing will be submitted to PAU. And so for the PhD program, the application review begins November 1st, and then regular consideration is January 7th. So for both programs, prerequisites are required, especially in the PhD program, but in the MS program, they're only required if you are a non-psychology major. And then if you're also required to submit a resume or a CV for both programs, and then also a statement of purpose, and then also 3 letters of recommendations. So the letters of recommendations, we're looking for professors that you worked with in the past, any supervisors, managers that you worked in a more formal setting, or even volunteer supervisors or coordinators, and anything when it comes to any personal relationships like your family, your friends, even therapists. That should not be the choice for letters of recommendation. So yeah, keeping it more in a formal setting that they've known you. And then also we require you to submit all of your official transcripts from all the colleges and universities you've attended. And then also the GRE will not be required for the PhD this cycle. And then for the MS, it's not required either. And then the PhD program, it is not rolling admissions. And then the MS program, it is rolling admissions, where once you submit your application and it goes through being reviewed, then you'll be offered to move on to the next steps, and then hopefully after that you get admitted. So it's a little bit different in the PhD program. And then here is the PhD admissions timeline. So the application should open September 7th, and then the application review November 1st, and then January 7th. And then all your materials should be submitted by January 21st. So you can submit your application by January 7th. However, we do recommend students to apply a lot earlier, just because it is a very popular program, and sometimes depending, we could fill up, and And so we also ask for materials to be submitted by January 21st. And if they're not submitted by then, we just can't guarantee that the interview slots haven't been filled up. And so typically interviews are towards the end of January until around mid-March. And so it's an interview weekend. So typically those are 2 days. And we also have a lot of panels going on top of your interviews that you would be doing the next day. And then we have Admitted Students Day, which is typically in the beginning of April. And in terms of it being virtual, the interviews will most likely be virtual, just like they were this last cycle. And then Admitted Students Day is in person. It is an in-person event. However, there is going to be some virtual events as well. And then if you are admitted, you have to make your decision and confirm your enrollment by April 15th. All right. And then here is just some information. We have a lot on our YouTube page where it sort of goes through the application, how to apply to PsyCast and sort of the details of breaking down each requirement. So that is available for you to watch. And then since today we're almost out of time, if you don't go to another open house, you could also reach out to me and we can either talk one-on-one, and I can also connect you to a current student as well. If you want to learn more about any of the MS or doctoral programs. All right, and then we have about 5 minutes left for questions. So if any questions we didn't get to, and then I'll just stop sharing. All right. And then I see here that someone's asking about what about the counseling and education supervision PhD? So for that one, you can reach out to me. I could give you Krista's information for our CES program, which is our program manager. And then for that, the application should open as well around September 7th or so. Please. Yeah, I'll write my email address in the chat as well. All right, and let me see if we didn't get to any certain questions. The PhD program funded. So our doctoral programs are not fully funded. So the tuition cost is a responsibility of the student. We do offer some scholarships, however, they are limited, but if you wanted to go over, anything in the financial, I do recommend reaching out to financial aid. Is PsyD a STEM degree? Dr. Arnaud, would you know the PsyD is a STEM degree?
STEM degree in what sense? I'm not sure. I mean, I know what STEM is, but I'm not sure what that means. Can somebody who asked the question maybe clarify a little bit?
Is PsyD a STEM degree? Can international students get a 3-year OPT?
OPT?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we get international students can get CPT and OPT. CPT for while they're in the program, and then OPT for postdoctoral. Yes. I want to, let's see, I'm not sure if I'm saying this name right, Lunia or Lunaya. In terms of, I want to clarify internships and practica, and practicum are all in the state of California. Most of them very directly in the Bay Area. For internship, you can apply everywhere through all of the United States and territories, as well as in Canada. Let me see. The GRE is not required. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if in the last couple of minutes I can make sure to answer everybody's question. The PhD is in person, yes. So if you're in the MS program and you were completing it while you were in Pennsylvania and you did 2 years there, you would need to move to the Bay Area in order to complete the PhD program. And we don't set up our classes to be hybrid classes. They are all in person. And so it's not something where you can say, I think I'd like to just drop in now to the PhD program and do it online, because I know the MS was, but it's can't do it that way.
Will interviews be online or in person? Yes, I would believe that they're going to be virtual.
Art, does sound like you might need to talk to somebody specific about what you're interested in transferring in, but I did try to answer your question that you might be able to transfer some courses in, but you still have to do basically the rest of the program. Luis, about counselor education and supervision, that's not anything I'm involved in. That's a totally different program that is now beginning, I believe, to recruit its first cohort. So that would be something the admissions or the counseling program could help you with. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm getting down to the bottom here. Looks like Maya and everybody else has done a great job of answering most of the questions. How many years of experience are we looking for? We're not necessarily looking for any particular number, but if you are somebody who's gone through an undergraduate degree with absolutely no research experience and no research experience since that time, then there's no indication to us that you either have any training in it or that you have enough information to know that it's something you're interested in. And while I understand that people can say, oh, I want to come into the PhD program and ultimately I want to do, pardon me, private practice, so I don't really want to do research, then again, that's where I say I'm not sure a PhD program is the best placement for you. There's other programs that offer the ability to do private practice without having to do research. And I think that can be a better fit for some students. It's a pretty big undertaking to do 5 or 6 years to get a doctoral degree, particularly if it's not something that you actually need the specific skills for. Are evening classes available? Can you keep your day job? Art, most of the MS classes, I believe all of the MS classes are in the evening, but we do not have like classes offered at all times. So it may be that one class has 3 sections offered during the day, another class has a section at night or something like that. You cannot assume that you would definitely be able to take all your classes at night. And to answer the OPT question, by the way, Lisa Harris, who works with the international students, is also a really good resource. She works with veterans too. I know we have to end.